I request Mr. Chawla, my good friend and co-panelist, on throwing some light on income tax issue and the one which I identified. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. At the outset, my immense congratulations to Mr. Goyal and Mr. Tyagarajan and the entire leadership of IOV. I mean, it's certainly an eye-opener for me. Little I realized that we'll have so many luminaries here. I see a lot of familiar faces. Saket, you're here. You've been helping the company. I was earlier a independent director on a leading state-owned insurance company, and we used to utilize his wisdom a lot. I remember that. A lot of familiar faces. Thank you, Rajiv. I'll be certainly remiss in not being able to hear a insightful paper from distinguished Mr. Buddhapati and my other fellow co-panelist. Very quickly, first of all, I must make a standard disclaimer. These are my views. I represent the government now in representing tax matters before the senior forums of the country. So lest this be viewed as views of the union. These are my own views. The presentation, I'm sure the Secretariat will ensure that you all get. I won't trouble with too many slides on this. I pretty much addressed Rajiv's question. We have a luminary who is also part of the Law Commission. I'm sure he'll also add a lot of value to our deliberations. Rajiv pretty much stole the thunder along with Ankit in terms of stating the fact that there is a lack of convergence insofar as the various laws which are applicable, whether it's exchange control, regulatory, prescription, or for that matter, you have the income tax and the corporate law, probably trying to look at a particular situation with a given lens, and ultimately it's the user or the stakeholder which is either put to some kind of quandary in trying to harmonize everything. I often feel that as an investor, you know, when you have to go through the notes to accounts of the financial statements or look at the explanatory notes, etc., I mean, you will be certainly put to loss if they are drafted by people of such immense intellect, you know. You know, how do you finally derive a simple value out of it as a user, whether they are user friendly or not? That's one part of it. The harmonization of laws, of course, maybe you'll have another luminary speak a little more because he's part of the Law Commission. But insofar as the contemporary laws are concerned, I mean, it's sad to say that even after 10 years of the Companies Act 2013 coming into being, it's still not settled. Every year you have an ordinance or an amendment to the Act. It's very ironical. The first Companies Act we had in our country was in 1913. And after 100 years, we got another Companies Act 2013, which still after 10 years hasn't been able to really settle and get in a stable kind of situation, and the amendments are far too many. Insofar as tax is concerned, Rajiv asked me to speak on one particular issue of transfer pricing. Let me make it very clear to you. The Supreme Court in the recent decision of SAP Labs, when a matter was taken up from a judgment delivered by the Karnataka High Court at the instance of revenue. That's fine, don't run the slides. Amartya Sen once told me, Aseem, PowerPoint is given by people who are in power and have no point to make. I remember at his book launch on Idea of Justice, I was there with him. So coming back to the SAP Labs decision on transfer pricing, the Karnataka High Court said that, well, transfer pricing is a matter of fact. It's more about numbers, looking at some arm's length consideration, most appropriate method under Rule 10D, etc. So it's a matter of fact. The revenue carried it up to the Supreme Court, and perhaps rightly so. Not that I espouse the cause of revenue. On a parity of reasoning, I felt that it was a fair pursuit of the revenue to take it to the Supreme Court. And they did allude that it's not purely numbers. There's a bit of assumptions, there is a bit of law involved, there's a little bit of suppositions involved. So it needs to be considered. Now the the Supreme Court found favor in terms of the thought process of the revenue, said in so many words that, well, the High Court should look at the matters pertaining to transfer pricing on the aspect of comparability and whether it, now what is transfer pricing for a layman? If I do a transaction which is a controlled transaction between two related parties, I just want to see that if that transaction had been done with an uncontrolled situation with an unrelated party, whether the terms, the margins, the numbers, broadly speaking, are the same or not, because 75% of the global trade is amongst related enterprises, parent subsidiary, global companies, big global companies, big cartels, etc. And every country wants to have its fair share of tax. Me and Rajiv can transfer price something. Now, if you open your eyes a little bit, you may find it slightly contrary to customs valuation. Customs, you want to figure out what's the price, right? Because I want to, assuming a product has a higher custom tariff, you want to charge the maximum so that maximum custom duties are paid. Transfer pricing is on the contrary saying that, well, let's figure out what's the arm's length price between two related parties to figure out whether it's been inflated or it's not inflated. So there is a divergence in terms of the lens with which you are looking at. On transfer pricing, my answer is very short, or my view is very short. I do represent a lot of international tax matters now. If you can demonstrate perversity in the approach followed while doing your transfer pricing study, insofar as either suggesting that the comparables used were not really true comparables, or while looking at the most appropriate method, there is an element which has led to some sort of an error done by the tribunal, which is the final fact-finding authority, then certainly a question of law should be admitted post the decision of the Supreme Court. In the case of SAP Labs, where they said that no comparability aspects should be considered, which takes back to a simple situation that transfer pricing studies done by experts here, yourselves, leading accounting consulting firms are user-friendly or not. Now, when you say user-friendly, you should also include user-friendly insofar as the one who is adjudicating on it, the revenue, the courts, and the larger section of society. It may serve your interest because you're footing the bill, you're the client, but does it help the other person to read, interpret, understand, evaluate, and pass a judgment on it? If it doesn't help that purpose, maybe it's the most sophisticated study done by the wisest brain and the most informed brain, having the best recourse of the databases, the provinces of the world, the Capital Line, the Bloomsbury of the world, won't happen. It has to pass the muster of a common sensical approach. That's one part of it. So that's my simple 2 bits on transfer pricing. Income Tax Act has a fair bit of nice prescription on transfer pricing, pretty much following the OECD prescription, and of course UN is also now catching up insofar as UN transfer pricing report commentary which we had in 2017. That's one part of transfer pricing. Rule 11 UA, Ankit was mentioning a little bit, Rajiv also made a mention about it. My prescription on Rule 11 UA is very simple. Now, if you go through the slides at your ease and convenience, the scope has been enlarged, the prescription has been enlarged. We had earlier few methods, now we have more methods. As an expert valuer, all of you who are assisting your clients on, let's say for the moment on income tax, don't lose two sides. दो चीज़ों का कभी ध्यान नहीं बोलना. Never lose two things out of your mind. One, income tax always wants you to calculate real income theory. Is it an income in normal parlance or not? Second, whether there is a deemed fiction which has been adopted so as to substitute the real income theory. So by default, the thumb rule is Income Tax Act wants to assess tax what is income in normal real sense. If in normal real sense, if it is income, what we call as real income theory, then it's fine, absolutely fine. Then you've assisted your client or whatever has been the reason of procuring that valuation for issue of shares, 11 UA, 56, section 56, etc. Whatever may be the purpose, it should achieve that. Section 56 of the Income Tax Act is a situation where you're looking at deeming situations, whether the price or the value or the consideration is fair or reasonable or more or less. And then that deeming fiction is supplanted over the real income theory. So you should be very clear why I am doing this exercise, what is the purpose of this when it comes to tax valuation, and what are the contours and boundaries within which I am doing. Is it a legislative framework? Is the methodology prescribed under the Income Tax Act? What is the rule which is suggestive in the Income Tax Act? And then try and follow in letter, both in letter as well as in spirit. If you could do that, then you're really doing justice on it. I'm not saying don't bring your 2 bits of value addition to it. Please, you should do, because at the end of the day, the objective is it bona fide? Is it reasonable? And is it purposeful for the purpose for which it was sought to be done? Why? The courts have time and again said and have trampled the revenue, saying that, look, if he's given by an expert, if the report is reasonable, bona fide, doesn't smack of anything which is wrong, don't sit in judgment over it just because you're a Mr. Assessing Officer. No. Courts are very categorical on it. If the report is correct, in the sense that it's bona fide, it makes some sensible answers, you can't demonstrate some lack of serious palpable error in this, then just because you don't like it doesn't mean you can rubbish it. No. The highest court of the country, superior courts of the country on more than one occasions have said so. I mean, we're sitting in Bombay, I'm reminding of Titan's decision of Bombay High Court have said, don't just throw away the report, Mr. Assessing Officer, just because you don't like it. So whenever you're drafting the report for tax purposes, have your purpose in mind, the objective, what's the relevant provision for which it is being asked for. Is it a mandamus issued under 142 capital A of the Income Tax Act? Now the scope has been enlarged, you have inventories also which are covered in. Or it's a reference under 55A of the Income Tax Act, where a reference has been asked in some report, or it's largely the 56, which is the larger play or the flavor of the season currently, that section 56 is being invoked, and therefore you need to go to Rule 11 and various variants of Rule 11. Rule 11 is a codified rule. Like it or don't like it, this is part of the statute, so follow it to the T. That's what I wanted to suggest insofar as the income tax bit is concerned. Do we have time? Just one more thought. I had a very interesting conversation yesterday with one of your gentlemen, and forgive me if I could name him, Mr. Pachaya, right? Yeah, thank you. The aspect of the thematic, lack of thematic, let's say, lack of thematic inputs might result in vacillating in terms of drawing output insofar as approach is concerned. So I agree with him completely that unless and until a little bit of theory is put into the exercise in terms of the blueprint, the answer may vacillate in terms of the subjective view of each of the expert, and therefore the more the theory is invested in exercise, either in terms of blueprint or in terms of standards or in terms of prescription. I'm not saying subjectivity is bad, rather improvisation always brings the best in terms of bringing a fresh breath of air. But even insofar as tax and the aspect of marrying tax and valuations are concerned, if our thematic groundwork and our fundamentals are in place and we rely on certain set fundamentals, I think it will make a job very easy. While I'm addressing to you, I do fairly recognize the empathy which I have for the people who are sitting in the adjudicatory body deciding the issue or deciding a dispute. A taxpayer and the state, and there is somebody who has to pass a judgment. Our job, when I say our means, I would take the liberty of including you, is to just be that one little thing in mind. How do I make his job easy? Trust me, if you make his job easy, who has to decide between the two differing views, then perhaps, as Palkiwala Sahab used to say, that you're already home, you've already won. Because if you make the job of the person who has to decide easy, irresistibly his decision will be something which will be justiciable. With this, I thank Mumbai, Navi Mumbai for the opportunity. Thank you to IOV, Rajiv and everybody. It's been great to wait for the turn and speak with all of you. See you another day. Bye. Namaskar.